Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the Fantasy Football Counselor. Today, we're talking about Fantasy Football 2020, bust or trust. Online here, we've got Tom Santanello, Pro Football Insider, knows the ins and outs of reality football, and I know the fantasy end. So what we're going to do today, Tom, we're going to do a rapid fire session. You're going to ask me some fantasy football questions. I'm going to give you guys, my background on what I think of these guys, some background on the situation. And also at the end, are they going to bust or do we trust them for Fantasy Football 2020? I'm excited to dive in this, Tom. How you doing?
I'm good. I'll start to get into the fantasy side.
You're not wasting any
Not my
time,
expertise,
man.
but I'll help you out with this one.
We're going to get you into fantasy this year. Now, Tom, again, how long have you been watching football? Your whole life, right? Obviously.
Yeah, give or take a couple years.
Yeah, and he's been an NFL agent. He's been out there. He doesn't brag too much. Let's put it that way. But all right, so let's go. You got some questions for me. We didn't plan this at all. I don't know anything you're going to ask me. Let's just get to it.
Neither do I.
We're just gonna have an open discussion. Let's just talk. No structure. Let's just talk football.
Texans wide receivers.
All right, this is an interesting situation. I'm kind of excited about Cooks. I really am. I think there could be some upside there. There's targets to fill there. I mean, Fuller hasn't stayed healthy. Cooks obviously hasn't stayed healthy as well. We got David. This is why I love David Johnson, because he's going to line up as a receiver as well, I think, sometimes. But I think Cooks is very interesting. I think a lot of people will sleep on him because if you think about it, Hopkins was first round talent, right? Cooks isn't, his ADP is what, like 6th, 7th round? So, I mean, sometimes he's coming off early, sometimes later. His ADP is very volatile. I think he's a steal for fantasy if you go Cooks.
How about the other 2 guys or 3 guys in any later rounds?
I'm probably staying away. Fuller, I mean, he's got those boom bust games.
Injury prone.
Yeah, and Cobb, I'm not excited, man, at all. At all. Years to wow me, and guess what, Tom? I'm not wowed. Let's put it that way.
Let's go with an obvious one. Frank Gore.
Frank Gore. The guy's what, 150 years old?
36.
Push it 150.
36, but close. Listen, he's had a great career.
He has.
Last couple years haven't gone as planned, but I mean, he's 35, 34 and 35 last couple of years. I don't know. Obviously, they can't give Le'Veon the ball every play, even though they're paying him. They should. I don't know. Do you think, I mean, he's not going to be worth a pick, Frank Gore, I wouldn't think, but It drops the value of Le'Veon.
Yeah. I mean, I'm staying away from Le'Veon. I'm staying away from Gore. Le'Veon could be a safe, solid RB2. He's got some upside. I mean, they did make improvements, I believe, on their O-line, if I'm incorrect or correct here. They did make some improvements. They've got Mims there. I'm staying away from Bell, and I'm definitely never drafting Gore. I mean, there's just not worth it. When you guys are doing your fantasy football draft, now here's some fantasy football draft advice here, a fantasy football draft strategy, always aim high on the depth chart. So I'm better off getting a guy that I don't know that could potentially be an RB1, like a Swift. We don't know. I think they're going to be going by committee as well.
Where's Bell projected?
Who's that, Bell? I think he's going in around the 2nd or 3rd round. So
what if he slips to the 3rd? Would you take him?
As an RB3, maybe, but there's other guys on my radar. See, I'd rather have David Johnson. I think he's a better talent. I think he's in a better opportunity. I think he's going to get more volume. So
Singletary?
No, I'm staying away. Since Moss, staying away.
Jared Stidham.
You know what? This is actually appealing. I think he could take a lot of people by surprise. And I think a lot of people are thinking about the situation similar to when Brady was there in regards to fantasy. He could come in there and surprise people, man. I really think there could be something there with Stidham, and it could surprise a lot of people, man. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, I got a 2-part question. Let me ask both parts first.
Sure.
Dak Prescott, how high does he go? And if you take him, do you take Andy Dalton?
Good question. Now, typically, I don't handcuff my quarterbacks from the same team for fantasy. So Dak Prescott's average ADP right now is around 5th, okay? 5th round. Now, he's going in and around the same time.
Means you don't take their backup.
Yeah, I don't get their backup.
Okay.
Yeah, handcuff. Yeah. So, Tom, new to fantasy. And if you guys are new to fantasy, this is a good lesson. Remind me, we got to do the Buster Trust at the end, right? We've forgotten the Buster Trust. We'll go back and do that. So, David Johnson going back, I'm going to say trust. Le'Veon Bell, I don't think he's going to bust, but I don't trust
Brandon Cooks.
Cooks, I'm going to say, that's tough, man. This is boom or bust for him. I'm going to say trust as a wide receiver 2-3 on my team. Now back to the Dak Prescott question. Will I draft Dak? I'm probably not investing a 5th round pick on Dak Prescott because I can get myself a Aaron Rodgers or a Matt Ryan or a Josh Allen a little bit after. Kyler and Dak are coming off in and around the 5th round.
Oh, really?
Yes, for fantasy. So I don't know if
So
I'm ready to invest. There is an upside.
So would you do you handcuff running backs then?
Yeah. You know what? Here's how I look at it. Let me
It's
give you
not like it used to be in the NFL, obviously, but
this is a good question. So everyone's saying, Joe, why don't you draft? Listen to this. I want you guys to wrap your head around this strategy. Nobody talks about this. This is some advanced stuff, Tom. If you're new to this, which you are, listen, I want you to absorb this fantasy football advice here, okay? Check this out. So a lot of people are saying, Joe, draft Dalvin Cook and handcuff Madison later. But here's how I think. Why draft Dalvin Cook when I can get myself a Zeke, Barkley, or Henry early and they get Madison later? And Cook's going to go down. So when Cook goes down, right, which he will because he's gone down 3 years in a row, I got Madison. So now, Tom, see the strategy here? I've got 2 RB.
He's in a contract year, though. Do you think that'll push him to play the full year?
Oh, man, isn't he threatening to hold out already? They got.
But I mean, if he doesn't, usually that's when players don't get hurt when they're in their contract year.
I mean, he's got to push. He's got to push. He pushed last year to get a contract. He's already threatened to hold out this year, right? Don't they have to pay him before the season? I'm not sure how the contract works.
No, he's still got another year left, but he wants to get paid before that.
Oh, he's not getting that. I mean, okay, so yeah, if he does not get paid, yeah, he'll be incentivized.
Well, players, yeah, yeah, go ahead.
But I just don't think he's got it. I just don't. That's why I think he blew his load last season. I think he honestly blew his load. Now, I watched his highlight. Go back. I encourage you guys. Aside from a couple of good runs, I'll give him full credit for runs up the middle, ran hard on a few. But every time, man, Tom, I'm telling you, man, go watch the tape. He gets the ball, and it's like a magnet. It's sucking him off to the sideline. He just runs safely and gingerly off to the sideline on almost every run. Catches it, and he'll like look to the sideline and run just to preserve his body. This guy is fearful. He knows he's injury prone, and I'm staying the hell away from Dalvin Cook. Madison, I love, and he's going pretty much like super late. He's going like 10th, 11th, 13th round. He's super late. People aren't even drafting Alexander Madison, and I think he's going to be the starter there at some point. I honestly do.
Now, this isn't a handcuff question, but it's similar. If you have a guy outside on the one receiver, I'm going to give you a specific example, DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald could steal. Would you take both of those and play them both every week?
No. You're better off going for like wide receiver ones on teams. So you want to ideally get like Cooks and Hopkins, right? Because then that way Fitzgerald's kind of a wide receiver too.
But don't you guarantee all the spots on that?
What's that?
Don't you guarantee yourself all of the receptions on that team?
Yeah, but you want to aim high for volume. You're better off getting a better wide receiver too on a team. So I think Lazard, he's got a high ceiling potentially. He's a good wide receiver too you can get. So I'd rather start Lazard over Fitzgerald. Does that make sense? Because Hopkins is a huge volume getter, or was before. I think there's going to be a big split there. Kirk's going to get, he's going to eat some, and Vitz and Hopkins. I'm not trusting Hopkins. I want to make a note here on that situation. So when you are asking Hopkins bust or trust, I'm going to say bust. He is a top 5 fantasy wide receiver right now, but he only achieved those numbers with 150 targets. I want to make a note here. This is very important. That Fitzgerald maxed out. He was the wide receiver 1 there without Hopkins, maxed out at 109 targets. So how is Hopkins now going to get 150 targets, become a wide receiver 1 with Fitz there, with Kirk there? I don't trust it. So I'm going to say Hopkins is a bust here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. What about Calvin Ridley, breakout player?
He's kind of had like a mini breakout, right? Finished in around 20th, 24th, I think, amongst wide receivers the past couple of years. He finishes in around there. His touchdowns fell off. He had 10 touchdowns a couple of years ago, dropped down to 7 last year. I love him this year. With Hooper gone, I think they're ready to go. I think he's going to be a red zone target. We know Julio doesn't get all the touchdowns. Calvin's going to be a beast this year. I love him. I think he's going to have a great year.
Hey, what about Adam Thielen, comeback player of the year?
Safe and solid. I think he's going to get, he's got that rapport, right? He's got the rapport with Cousins. I like him. I think he's going to be a solid wide receiver 1. As long as I get him in the right round. He's coming off 3rd round, 4th round. I don't have all the ADPs in front of me, but yeah, he's safe and solid.
Interesting. What about his, you think he's going to come back and have a career year again, or he's just going to,
it's healthy, he'll be solid. I got a bunch of mock drafts in front of me. He's coming off the 4th round, sometimes 3rd round. I trust him as long as, again, I always add depth. So if I'm getting Thielen, I always get myself another guy. There's no safety and security. A lot of people draft Odell Beckham in the first round, right?
Yeah.
Going back to Thielen, I'm going to say boom on him. But again, Odell, 3 years in a row, drafted in the first round, busted. Adams last year, busted, right? So it's very hard sometimes, even with the first round guys, there's no safety and security. I was getting Galladay last year. He crushed it for me. I was telling everybody, go robust RB, get Galladay round 4, and he did really well. Now Galladay's ADP went up. He's going second, third round now. So am I going to pay for Galladay? Maybe, if the opportunity is there. But
what about Rashad Perriman for the Jets?
not touching. That's just not a name I care about. One of those guys, years to wow me, I'm not wowed. Going to stay away from that.
Yeah. I mean, he was their number one. They got the rookie they drafted, but he came on late of last year, but he hasn't really panned out.
Right.
In the NFL. Now, what about Stephon Diggs in Buffalo? Do you think his value is going to be better than it was in Minnesota or worse?
Well, he had 150 targets. He was a top 10 wide receiver back in 2018, fell off in 2019. As you know, his targets went down. He was demanding the ball. And I don't know whether there was some sort of issue with him and Cousins or some sort of situation there where he just wasn't getting along with everybody. But bottom line is, I love the ceiling, but Josh Allen has come out and said, hey, man, like, I got the rapport with Beasley and Brown. They're going to eat. So that's a bit of a concern to me, but Diggs is a clear-cut wide receiver there, wide receiver 1.
Okay, I'm going to go off a little bit.
I say boom on him.
When's the earliest you draft a defense?
This is a good question. I literally wait as late as possible, but also I want to make a note of that, okay? I try to get a top 10 defense from last year. So if I see like a Patriots or Bills on there, someone like that, I will try to grab them as soon as I see defenses flying off the board. Because when you get into later rounds, Tom, it's a decision of like, do I grab a top 10 defense potentially, or do I get that breakout guy?
Is there any defense that's clear-cut number 1 over all the others?
With defense, it's tricky because you can go on last year's ADP. The problem with that is a lot of defensive changes are made in the NFL draft, right? So
any defenses you stay away from? Bengals? Or you just wait to see how they play the first few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, again, I try to get a top 10 defense, and then typically if I don't get a top 10 defense, I stream matchups. So if it's a good matchup, I'll probably pick that team off the waiver wire and start them.
So do you hold one defense on your team or 2 at all times?
You know what? Always one. I don't really hold 2. That's the only position I probably don't get a backup in.
Not even kicker?
Kicker, I don't get back. I literally wait till the last pick for kicker. I couldn't give a crap.
How about the new Patriots kicker? You like him or what?
We don't know. We got to see.
Would you take a shot at him, though?
No.
I mean, Belichick has drafted. I mean, he's gotten Vinatieri, has gotten Gostkowski. He's good at picking kickers. Would you take a chance on him as being a top 10 kicker without even kicking the ball?
Definitely could. I don't bank on ceiling for kickers. I go for consistent guys, the guys that are proven. I'll get the Patriots, or not Patriots, the Chiefs kicker. I'll get a Chiefs kicker. I'll get a high scoring team's kicker because I always end up in the red zone one way.
What about the Patriots not having Tom Brady putting the ball in the end zone? You think their field goal attempts will go up a little more? I mean, that's a possibility too.
Very possible.
You want field goals. Yeah.
I look at that when I look at a kicker. Definitely.
I mean, yeah, that's a tough one. Okay, let's go to the monsters of the Midway. Any excitement there? Running back situation. I know you used to be high on the running backs there. The coaching staff probably starts off the season on the hot seat. Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky, that's a shit show. A wide receiver situation, they do have one there. Is that where you would go?
You know what? When you look at Mitch Trubisky, man, this is a tough one. I'm going to stay for fantasy. You definitely don't want to draft him. But my question is right now, David Montgomery, love him. I think he's going to get a ton of volume this year if Nagy pulls his head out of his ass. But Allen Robinson, as soon as you said that, it just got me thinking of Robinson. I think he's got a high ceiling. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 there. I think he's going to be an interesting boom or bust candidate. I don't feel warm and fuzzy about him, though, Tom. I really don't. Not Robinson. Something about him. I think he's going to be safe, but I have my question marks.
Yeah. What about the Cole Kmet, the rookie tight end? I know there's not much on him, but he will be the number 1 tight end as long as he doesn't screw it up.
Yeah, I like rookie tight ends. I do.
Foles goes to the tight ends. They both will go to the tight end. That's their offense too. They didn't use Trey Burton right, though. Trey Burton finished the season strong in Philly. That Super Bowl year, got a big contract. He's actually in Indianapolis now, which could be a sleeper pick as their tight end.
When I'm looking at upside tight ends, I'm looking more like Hawkinson and Fant. Now, Hawkinson last year actually scored 2
Yeah,
touchdowns in the first 4 games with Stafford, and Stafford got hurt and he got screwed, right?
yeah, that's the problem over there. Now, is there any player do you think is going to jump up from mid-level to top tier, like a Debo Samuel
Yeah, I think AJ Brown.
or Metcalf? I'm sorry.
Yeah, actually, I like all of them. I like Debo, I like Metcalf, AJ Brown. Now, if I were to put them in order, that's tough. I'm probably leaning towards AJ Brown because they've got a robust O line, solid O line, right? They've got Tannehill, who's made Landry pretty fantasy relevant years ago. I'm going to say AJ Brown here. The problem with Debo is they spread the ball around a lot. That's an issue for me. And when you look at Metcalf, I think he's going to take a step up as well. But I'm going to probably go Brown, Metcalf, Debo in regards to ceiling, to safe floor with Debo. But all three amazing talents, and I think they all take a step up.
Let's stay with the Seahawks. Greg Olson, any value, or he's pretty much
With aging
pass?
Yeah, with aging players, man, it's like once they start falling off, I don't see them like fall off, and then boom, surge back up. That's very rare. Look at Marshawn Lynch saying he wants to come back. Like, dude, just retire, man. Like, or not come back. He's a free agent. I keep saying he's retired. Like, it's done. Like, you're not going to see like this resurgence of like, amazing fantasy reproduction. I think even Peterson, man, like it's just when you're done, you're done. I just find that. Don't you find that too? When the curve goes down, rarely does it ever come up.
No, it doesn't. But speaking of Seattle, I mean, they've invested heavily in the running back position, first round pick a couple of years ago. I think Carson's supposed to come back from injury at some point. So they obviously, I told you before, they weren't happy. Not happy, but they're just not satisfied with, the health and stuff like that. So obviously adding him to the mix would make it even worse for fantasy perspective, I would think.
Right. I want to note with Metcalf, Brown, and Debo, I trust those guys. Now, the problem is with anybody in fantasy, you can't fully trust anybody. I want to make that as a disclaimer, okay? You always have to have the belt and suspenders, Tom. You got to have depth. You got to cover yourself at every position. Yeah, you feel warm and fuzzy with this guy in the first round, but he could completely bust. So you got to have 3, 4, 5 guys to back him up that have ceiling and upside that could give you those fantasy points every week. I want to make a point of that. There is no trust really in fantasy. Trust nobody in fantasy, Tom. Trust nobody.
What about an Evan Ingram? He's been injured a lot.
I like him. I like the ceiling because they did not invest in another wide receiver, man. I love the ceiling, love the upside if he stays healthy. They've got Slayton there. They got Shepard. Who else? The other guy, Tate. Like, I don't.
Yeah, nothing spectacular.
Shepard could take a step up. Shepard could take a step up. But in this situation, Tom, it's tough to decide who is the wide receiver one. Now, targets, Slayton led the Giants in targets. So I'm going to say I trust Slayton as my wide receiver 3, and I think he's got the highest ceiling there. Again, number 1 in targets last year amongst these 3 wide receivers. So technically he's slated as the wide receiver 1, but is he that much better than Shepard and Tate? Like, is he going to emerge that much more? Where you have like Hopkins and Fitz, there's a big gap. Hopkins is a lot better, right? When I look at a wide receiver, I look for that big gap, and I draft the guy that's higher in that gap. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yep.
Now, let me ask you this, and this is something we'll touch on in one of our shows. We're going to have something called position battles in the preseason. But as far as position battles, is there anything you want to keep an eye on now that get your, the people excited about, like Ryan Fitzpatrick versus Tua, something where they can keep an eye on? Some of these position battles will end up in 50-50 split. That doesn't happen at the quarterback position. May happen with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary.
Right.
But there will be some position battles, like, Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, Ingram's going to go in with the head start, but what if Dobbins comes in and just lights the fucking tree up?
Right.
Then, like, is there any position battles, like, off the top of your head? And granted, we'll have something in the future where we'll have 10, 15 of these position battles and do a whole show on it. But is there anything that excites you right now? Justin Herbert, Tyrod Taylor. I know you don't really care about Tyrod Taylor. It could be Tua. Tua's been playing since he was a freshman. He comes in and wins that job. He could be the man. He's got the talent, more talent than Burrow, before the year. Burrow had obviously a great year. But is there any other position battle?
Are you asking which ones I'm watching, or are you asking which ones?
Just a sneak preview before you go into some more of them later.
Yeah, we should do this. There's a ton of them I'm watching, and the ones I'm heavily watching right now is Carry-On and Swift in Detroit at running back, and I'm also watching Henderson and Cam Akers. I think Cam Akers is a plug and play right away. Another one, as you can see, I'm wearing the Colts blue here, and I need Marlon Mack to go away, but Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor, I mean, to me, there's no
See, I
debate.
don't worry about Marlon Mack as much. I don't think I don't think they like him.
No, I don't think so. I think they cut him. I think they get rid of him. And also another one, which again, years to wow me, Tom. I'm not wowed. Damian Williams and Clyde Edwards. I want to see. Here's the thing. I know Clyde Edwards is going to eat, but I want him to eat 3 down back. I don't want Damian Williams to see the field. That's when I talking position battles. I want them to be workhorses. And this Tom is why I go robust RB, because Gurley, David Johnson. Listen to this: David Johnson, Zeke, CMC. All these guys, even Zeke might be in trouble with Pollard this year. You never know. But like you got Saquon, because I don't think Deion Lewis is a threat. Derrick Henry. Who else is there? Saquon Barkley, CMC, Zeke, David Johnson, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette. There's only a handful of guys that are going to be guaranteed that workload. The other guys are question mark. But Taylor is in a position. Cam Akers is in a position to really emerge.
Well, I think it's so funny. The Jaguars came out and said that, they heard a few minor talk about Fournette. It's so dumb and so obvious. They obviously do not want him on that team. They obviously don't, but he's there by default. I don't know if anybody else wants them, but the Jaguars, maybe they were greedy in what they were asking for in return. They got Yannick, the franchise player. They were asking for a lot on him, and he's not as good as Khalil Mack. They were asking for a similar stash of draft picks, I heard. Not sure if that's true, but they, with Leonard Fournette a couple years ago, he drove him to the playoffs. Blake Bortles. I mean, they almost went to the AFC title game. They almost beat the Patriots, or did they go? They were around there. And something funny. Fournette actually is a guy. You give him the ball 25 times a game, and I think that's what, like you said, they will do that this year because they're probably going to be done with him after the year. When you're done with him after the year, they decline the 5th-year option. Not that matters a whole lot. But when they don't have him for next year, they could always re-sign him. It's funny, and the Saints did that with Mark Ingram. They declined the 5th-year option, I believe, on him, but they ended up re-signing him to like a friendly 4-year, $16 million deal. But anyways, Fournette seems like the type of guy. There's no competition in that backfield. 25 carries a game. Just use them and abuse them, and let the next team take them. Right? Don't you think that's what they have to do?
So my question to you in regards to that, yeah, I totally agree. It's really sad they're doing that to Fournette. I guess they're maybe looking at another rookie coming in next year or something like that, or they're looking to acquire someone. But here's the thing. If you're Fournette, this is the question. If you're Fournette, are you going to work your ass off for another team to recognize you and you get paid? Or do you go on cruise control, kind of like which I feel David Johnson did last year? He knew he was
getting paid. But he already got paid.
But I still, when he was running,
money matters. I mean, Fournette got about $25 million going in the top 5, I believe, about that. So he did get paid, but he didn't get paid. But I remember Fournette. He came. They beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh in the playoffs. He was on top of the world. But that's another coach on the hot seat. We'll have an episode on that too. Coaches on the hot seat. Doug Marrone over there, he was a hot commodity. He left Buffalo, was supposed to go to the Jets, I believe. Something happened. They didn't pick him. He's whatever. But I don't know what's going to happen. What happens if Jacksonville wins 10 games, though? They go 10-6. I don't think they'll keep Fournette. I think they'll replace him in the draft and keep Minshew if he's the man.
So I trust Fournette for fantasy this year, but again, I'm a 3-headed monster. I think he's going to play hard. But your opinion, if you're Fournette, do you bust your ass for the Jacksonville Jaguars, knowing these guys probably aren't Super Bowl contenders and are going to dump your ass after? Do you put your heart and soul into this?
Listen, he's getting $4 million this year. Okay, so you got to look at it. That's what he's looking at. He wants a big payday. I think he will bust his ass. Unless they go 2-6, 2-7, if he starts to feel and get hurt a little bit, I don't think he's going to risk future injury for his next contract. But he hasn't done enough to earn the next contract. That's the problem. When you're out there available on the trade market and you don't get traded, obviously teams could be asking a lot. But he was a top 5 pick, one of the best running backs to come out of college in a decade when he got drafted. That's what they said. Right. So there's not anybody knocking on his door waiting for him. He's not one of the best free agents to come out in a long time. Number one. Number two, he's a running back. They always decline after that. So look at that situation. You have to look at the totality of the circumstances. And him as a person, he's always played hard. I mean, I think his better year, it's funny. If you look back to college, he played better when he was a freshman and sophomore than he did his last year as a junior. Sometimes he gets ahead of himself. But listen, it's a very humbling experience to be on the trade block. It's a very humbling experience for an NFL player to get cut. So once you're not wanted anymore and you've been wanted your whole life from Pop Warner on, some guys turn it on and they say, fuck you. They go for it. And I think that's what he's going to end up doing. But like I said, if any little injuries come upon, I think he's going to try to sit and, for free agency. If he does enough, maybe. If it happens later in the season and they're not competing for a championship.
Right. So, yeah, I'm going to say I trust him now. But if I have to decide at the end of the first round, early second, Jacobs or Fournette, I may lean towards Jacobs. Let's put it that way.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Youth. I'm going with a little bit younger, right?
Now,
Jacobs a little younger.
Speak about Yeah, I mean, I guess so. What about Todd Gurley? Does he have any competition in Atlanta?
I love him this year. I love him. There's no competition behind him. I think they've got, who do they got? Quadri Olson. I don't know what the heck his name is. And Brian Hill or whatever. Like, see, they're not even relevant. If I can't think of
They're
their
banking
name,
on him.
Yeah.
See, now, Devontae Freeman's going. Where's Devontae Freeman? Is he anywhere?
Devontae Freeman's a free agent right now.
Free agent still. So Gurley, you're basically telling your audience that take Gurley. The only risk you have is injury because he's going to be the man. He probably will produce, but it's going to be injury that you have to look out for.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to watch out the injuries. And I think they're going to run to the ground, man. I think they're looking to win a Super Bowl this year. They want to win it hard.
It comes back again. That's another coach on the hot seat. Many people thought he should have been fired last year, but they drafted a few, good players, beefed up. I think they got a good cornerback first round. They're going for their defense, and now all of a sudden they feel like they have the pieces to the puzzle on the offense. What about their tight end situation? They switched, didn't they?
Yeah, upside Hurst, upside, but is he going to be the next Hooper? Right? Maybe. I don't know.
Do you think that's a good switch going from Hooper to Hurst?
I think Hooper's the better tight end.
Why didn't they keep Hooper though?
I don't know. Maybe it was a contract.
They franchised him and traded him, right, to the Browns. So why didn't they keep him? I mean, maybe they just didn't think he fit that offense. You don't know what happens behind the scenes, but do you like Hurst over there?
I think there's some upside, and you can get him for super good value late. He's not on a lot of people's radars. So there is a ton of upside for him.
Now, I mean, they have a lot of talent on that team. So, I mean, you have to run the ball. Freeman did excellent over there a few years ago. He got paid, and then he never showed up again after that.
Right.
But, I mean, Gurley, he's a good person, good character. He has a lot to prove, I think. He's from the Southeast. He went to school in Georgia. And the stars are aligning for him to have a tremendous year. Where would you take him in the draft? If you're a newbie, fantasy guy. Really? You wouldn't take him into the first?
No, because you could probably get Jacobs there or someone else. He's falling into the second every time I've done a mock draft.
Now, do you think Jacobs is going to get the same workload in Oakland? They drafted a couple receivers. Gruden wants to throw the ball. Do you think he's going to replicate that workload or even increase it?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to be the full workhorse there. And they've said they're going to implement him in the passing game. So PPR monster this year.
PPR?
Yep.
Let me ask you a question. Daily fantasy, that's something I've dabbled in the past.
Okay.
Is there a separate, I know it's more of a matchup game, right? But daily fantasy, is there one player you like more than the others on a consistent basis?
With daily, you got to take some risks. So I try to play matchups. I look for players that have a high ceiling boom type of game to mix in with my secure players.
Interesting. So as far as like a daily fantasy quarterback, I mean, is there guys like what I'm saying is you wouldn't touch in a draft, but that you would touch in daily because it's a matchup thing, right?
Yeah,
it's a simple question. Thing. Most of you, I get that, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, Daniel, I may not draft Daniel Jones early, but I may start him in fantasy DFS for that week. If he has
now,
easy matchup.
Mostly with quarterback, not really with running backs are running backs, right?
Yeah.
Or do you look at matchups with running backs?
I typically like to anchor my DFS roster with my solid running backs, but I also look at matchups as well. So it's a whole formula. But you got it, especially if those big prize pool matches where there's 100,000 people playing, you want to take risks in those matches. You can't play it safe. You got to go for some wild cards, and they got to have those boom type of weeks.
And you got to go with the guys that you got to look at the dollar amount, right?
Yeah.
So you have to go with lower value that has a high reward.
Exactly. You got to fit the budget with balance of your safe guys and then your wild cards that could boom that week.
Now, is there anyone you think, like I mentioned, J.K. Dobbins? He's not going to go high, but if he gets that starting job and Ingram gets hurt, he could be a top 3 running back.
Yeah, the problem with the thing is with Lamar, he ran 176 times last year. Ingram ran over 202. That's the over 350 plus 370.
They
plus.
run the ball. Harbaugh's going to run the ball.
Yeah,
But
but
are you predicting somebody to fall is what I'm saying, and to take a guy like that now? Would you take J.K. Dobbins, say later in the draft, because you think Ingram, he always gets hurt? If J.K. Dobbins comes in and starts running for 150 yards a game, week 4, 5, and 6, he's taking that job.
He could be solid, but I think Ingram's still going to be a thorn, and Lamar just runs it way too much for me.
But Ingram's had a lot of injury problems in the past. Now, great player when he plays, and he doesn't shy away against competition. So I'm just throwing it out there. Is there anyone else that's like waiting in the wings for that opportunity that you think will get that opportunity?
Cam Akers.
Cam Akers, yeah. I mean, he's more of a starter right away, I would think, though, right? Or do you think he's going to split time?
See, the thing is, if they believed in Henderson, they would have started him, right? That's the way I look at it. So Cam Akers could be a plug and play, but there's no guarantees in anything. Or they could just go with the hot-handed committee. And everybody's so high on Clyde Edwards, which I see the upside. Trust me. But you got
it's a sexy pick.
It is, but the problem is in 2017, am I right? Mahomes wasn't starting at quarterback. It was a different offense when Kareem Hunt tore it up, right? So my question is, like, is he going to be Kareem Hunt 2.0 from when was it? 2017? I don't think so. I don't think so. That's the problem I'm having, right? Kareem Hunt, 272 attempts, 1,300 yards. He was the rushing leader in 2017. But everyone thinks that that's the same thing that's going to happen with Edwards? Very possible, but again, it's a different offense, right? So it's going to be interesting.
I can see that. I mean, it's a tough situation when you're dealing with running backs, though. Don't you agree? Like, just that's the toughest position.
Well, your guys who are the workhorse. That's why I say draft a running back early. You get your consistent players early. You're safe and solid and secure. And then you could take some risks later. I think I'm all about drafting rookie running backs early. Trust me, I've done it before. But Clyde Edwards, I mean, Damian Williams bothers me. He's just going to be a pest. And Darrell Williams is there and Darwin Thompson. They may be pesty, and we haven't seen enough out of Clyde Edwards in the NFL or anything at all for him to justify.
Remember, let me rewind. Washington Redskins, Darius Geis came out as a rookie. How high was he ranked?
I did not touch Geis.
He got hurt, but
he got hurt. He just can't stay healthy, that guy.
So, like, do you think like a lot of people get too hyped on rookie running backs?
They do, and it's understandable because a lot of them land in positions where they could totally boom. Clyde Edwards being another guy, Jonathan Taylor being a guy, Akers being a guy. Montgomery last year, he was just set for a prime
every year. But even last year, I mean, no one picked John Jacobs, right, to be the man.
No, John Jacobs was drafted relatively
pretty high. Okay, but what about like these other teams? Like a lot of times, you don't know if the talent's going to transfer either to the NFL. These guys could get the opportunity and just could bomb, right?
They could. So when you look at Clyde Edwards, boom or bust, I'm going to say boom, but temper expectations, right? Like,
okay, let me stop you there. Do it this way: DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers. Who's booming?
Man, I'm gonna say Taylor. I'm all in on Taylor, man. Power, vision, strength, and a really good O-line. And the experience of Rivers too. I like it. I like Taylor. Maybe I'm a little biased because of the whole Colts thing.
Now, do you still like the Lions situation though? I know.
I heard. I love Swift. I love him, but I already heard they're going running back committee. That's what the GM said. So I'm not feeling comfortable about this.
Yeah, I don't believe what I hear this time of the year. It's funny. Yeah. Some of these GMs say so much stuff on the radio, then you hear others like Belichick doesn't say anything. So I don't believe anything that I say. It's a lot of bullshit that you hear too. Right. Now, what about the Eagles running back situation?
Man, oh man, do I love Sanders as of right now. But there's a couple lingering free agents still. I think Carlos Hyde is lingering. We talked about Devontae Freeman lingering. I'm almost afraid that they're just going to put somebody else in there with Sanders. As of right now, Sanders is a second and third round pick, ton of upside. as we're seeing now, Tom, it shows me that the Eagles believe in Sanders, and he turned it up at the end of the season. So I love him, but the problem is I just feel somebody's going to come in there and be a thorn.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. Now, one guy I'd like to keep an eye on is A.J. Dillon. I think he's got the talent to be the workhorse over there, and I think they're going to use him.
Problem is he's in a committee there with Jones and Williams. That's another issue, and I think they're going to throw the ball more this year.
But if he starts succeeding, don't you think he's going to take over that committee and be a one-man committee?
But how do you push Aaron Jones to side off completely? That's the issue. You can't just
He's not that good. I mean, I don't think he's that good. He's average.
He was solid.
He's not that good. Listen, if you draft a star, the guy becomes a star, 100 yards a game, you're talking 1,600-yard season. I mean, if he's a better player, they're going to play him. I mean, they drafted him, Aaron Jones isn't a star. I mean, he's there and he's good enough in that offense, I think, and he's getting the opportunities because Rodgers can spread the ball around. So it's not like they have to play like 8 men in the box to stop him.
Listen, a lot of people are drafting Aaron Jones thinking he's going to finish second in fantasy again like he did last year, but he won't. He had 236 attempts, right? Over 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns on the ground. That's insane. He's not going to see those numbers again. But a lot of people are drafting him, saying, oh, Jones is going to have a great year. And he's not going to see those numbers again, especially with Dillon there. But I don't see him being completely sidelined for Dillon. I don't see that.
Now, let me ask you this question. A lot of times you have a clear-cut top 1 or 2 or 3 fantasy player, Christian McCaffrey. A lot of times those guys fail to live up to the hype.
Right.
Do you see that?
I see they always fall off. Someone falls off, and I think Christian McCaffrey is going to fall off a bit. Different offenses here, guys. He's not going to finish first overall. I guarantee it amongst running backs. That I can almost assure you. Last time anyone did that was Priest Holmes in 2002, 2003. So if you're asking me who's going to fall off, it's very uncertain right now. I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey, but how much? That's the big question.
What are the other 2 options in your mind?
Who are going to fall off?
No, that have the chance to, the top 3.
We're looking at wide receiver. I think Hopkins falls off. We talked about that. I don't see him getting.
I was talking running backs. Okay, never mind.
Running backs. Okay, let's go running backs. Who's going to fall off? Man, that's tough. I'm going to say, we talked about Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, and Nick Chubb. Those are
Dalvin Cook. Yeah, I mean, he didn't do much last year, did he?
But the end, he fell apart. He had a good season, but he fell apart as per usual. Got injured, shoulder, whatever it was. But listen, Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook are my fall-offs.
Okay, now do you think, the Patriots, when they traded for Randy Moss, over a decade ago or however long it was, do you think Mike Evans can do what Randy Moss did with Tom Brady there this year and just boom onto the scene?
Could.
I mean, he's a great player. He's already an all-pro, but you know what I mean. Be just that guy that had 15 touchdowns, 12 touchdowns, whatever. I'm just talking like a monster year.
I think Brady's changed. I think his arm strength isn't what it used to be. Not only that, you've got so many targets there. You've got O.J. Howard if he stays. You've got Gronkowski. You've got Godwin. And if you know this, James White actually had 95 targets last year with the Patriots. So Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn are in for some receptions as well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't see a Moss year out of Evans at all.
No, but where would you take Mike Evans? His touchdowns are going to be – he's going to get the ball. Do you remember, though, Gronkowski's there, but he's not going to be in single, triple coverage, double coverage like he was in New England. They can't – Mike Evans is tall. He's big. He's going to get deep balls. He's going to get the red zone targets. But Brady wants to win the game. He doesn't give a shit about anything. He's going to throw to the open man. He's that good where he sees the field, too, as long as his skill doesn't decline. He's working hard, as we all know it. So – Mike Evans should see a little more. Bruce Arians throws the ball too, though. He's been known to throw the ball. Look what he did with Jameis last year. He led the league in a lot of categories that he shouldn't have.
Now, the problem is, do I bust or trust Evans? I'm going to lean a little more towards bust, but either Godwin or Evans. I'm torn on this because we don't know. We don't know who Brady's going to gravitate to. That's the issue I'm having with the situation. That's it.
Yeah, he could have anybody really. He could O.J. Howard. He could find a rapport with. Gronkowski could play 6 games. He hasn't played more than 11 games in 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, I don't trust
crazy amount. But Gronkowski is definitely, I think, going to be used not sparingly, but I think they're going to be smart. I don't think they need to target him 10 times a game, 14 times a game, like in New England he did sometimes. I think they need to use him in clutch situations and they just need to use the players they have. It sounds crazy, but in New England they didn't have as many weapons. They line Gronkowski out on the outside sometimes and use it as a mismatch. So they're going to put players out there, and there's going to be an open man every time.
Right.
It's tough, but
Oh, too many targets there. I'm probably staying away from that entire situation. Keyshawn Vaughn or Ronald Jones, we
I
don't
like
know.
Keyshawn Vaughn. I think he can be the next. Remember you when they had Deion Lewis,
Right,
James White, Rex Burkhead, Kevin Falk years ago. Like he could turn into that. I guess you call him a pest. He's
right,
never going to be enough to be a fantasy starter, but he's a good football player.
right.
And I think they like fresh legs out there on third down. Maybe Vaughn is the third down back.
It's going to be interesting. I think
It
Ronald
is.
Jones is getting settled. He kind of stepped it up last year a little bit, but is it enough to be the 3-down back? No, it's going to be a committee there. It's going to be hard to trust. I don't know who's going to emerge. I really don't. You're guessing. Anyone tells you that they know who the number one target for Brady is going to be in Tampa Bay, they're guessing because Godwin is just as good as Evans.
Now, what about Melvin Gordon? Bust? Boom.
Yeah, the problem is Philip Lindsay is, he is so persistent. He is a pest. He defines the word pest, and he's going to be a pest for Ingram.
Melvin Gordon, you like Melvin Gordon? Like I never thought he was as good as advertised, and his stats don't show it either. So I don't know.
Tier 2? He's a tier 2 guy, talent-wise.
I mean, he thinks he's tier 1. That's the problem. But listen, if he can run the ball good in Denver, they got Drew Lock coming in. I mean, everybody's hopping on the Denver hype this year. Do you agree with Denver offense? Boom or bust?
Yeah. The only problem is Lock's got to do it. If Lock is locked in, then we've got something special here. I really do. And he's got the good mentor. He's got Elway.
Is he somebody you're going to monitor? Oh, yeah, but the last couple that have fell under Elway, I don't, even when Paxton Lynch, like I don't think it was that good. But Lock seems to be different. Is it someone you're going to monitor, or would you draft Drew Lock as a backup?
Backup. Definitely backup with upside. And you can get him. I think he's ranked like 23rd right now in the consensus rankings amongst quarterbacks. So I love Drew Lock, man, all day.
And now give me one boom, but a surprise. Like I know you're not a fan of Carson Wentz, but a guy who can come in as maybe the 10th ranked guy and be Carson has that talent when he was 13 and 3 that year. I mean, a guy like that can come in and put the stats up. Daniel Jones and the Giants. I don't think so. I think Carson Wentz, if he has a comeback year, I don't think he will, but he's a guy who can be the number 1 ranked quarterback. If he has a year like he did a few years ago, could it be him? Who else could it be? Could Matt Ryan come back and have a year from 3 years ago when he went?
I think Ryan does.
Really?
I think Ryan has a great year. Carson Wentz, my shoulder is getting sore talking about him. I think he's going to probably throw something out again. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they really like Jalen Hurts. I think they think he's going to be a good player in the NFL, and I think they're going to give Carson 1 or 2 more years. If he declines every year, he's gone in 2 years.
Right. Bust for Wentz. I'm going bust. Bust. I don't trust Wentz. Drew Lock, I'm going to trust him as a backup.
You're going to trust Drew Lock as a backup?
So, Melvin, I don't trust Melvin. No, not with Lindsay there. Lindsay can go away. Once Lindsay fucks off, then yeah, I would trust Melvin.
Baker Mayfield?
No, I don't trust him. They did improve the O-line. Okay, yeah, let's talk about this real quick here. Odell Beckham saying he's going to have a bigger, faster, stronger year. This is his year. He's been saying this 3 years in a row. He's got no excuses this year. They've improved the O-line. They've got a good team, apparently, on paper. Is this the year of Odell? So that's my question to you.
Odell?
Sucks. What are your thoughts?
He has the talent.
Yeah.
He has the talent. It's such a hard decision because Jarvis Landry is a possession guy, used to be good at punt returning and other stuff like that. They got tight end. They have some weapons there.
Let's do quick math.
I don't know.
I'm going to do quick math with you right now, okay? Landry had 138 targets and Odell had 133. My first question to you is, can they get a lot more targets than that? Because to be a top fantasy wide receiver or a receiver at all, you need a lot of targets. Like if you look at Michael Thomas, he had 185 targets.
Only if one guy's willing to be the number 2.
Yeah, so Landry's got to bend over and say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm taking."
But also, the number 1 has to be a consistent. Like, if you look at a guy like, say, Antonio Brown used to be a guy that you trust on every play. I don't think he trusts Odell on every down. I don't think he trusts Jarvis on every down. You have to look at what a real number one wide receiver is.
Landry has to bend over and take a bow here if Odell's going to do that. Not only that, you got to look at another thing I also look at when I look at the situation. I look at attempts, okay? So Baker had 534 attempts last year in comparison to everybody else. Again, this is very important because you got to compare where were his attempts to everybody else. Does he throw the ball a lot compared to everybody else? And he does. He's top 10, but he's not where like Winston was throwing, or Matt Ryan throws a lot, or Brady, or even who is it? Big Ben throws a lot when he's out there.
Yeah.
Baker, does he throw it enough? Now they've got Hooper. They've got Kareem Hunt now, who's going to play the entire season. Kareem Hunt catches the ball, Tom. So to solve this debate with Odell, is he going to have a boom year? I don't think so. I just don't think
I don't know if he can be boom, but I think he can have a solid one receiver year. Because he is more, I mean, Jarvis is a good player, but I mean, Odell's better. So,
okay, so Kareem Hunt came back. He played 8 games, okay, 44 targets. The whole season, you got double. So he's going to probably see around 100 targets. Then you got Nick Chubb. He saw 49 targets, right? So that's 150 targets gone between Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
And you got Landry, and then you got Hooper. So there's not enough targets, man. Mathematically, it doesn't make sense unless
like we spoke about how you lock in on somebody. If he's going to lock in on anybody, Landry's probably more consistent with the route running is what I would say, but Odell's more talented. So you're right. It's tough. It's a tough situation,
right?
And I agree with you. There's a lot of targets to go around, but I think when he's in a jam, who's he going to look for on third down and all those other situations?
All right, let's wrap this show up here. You tell me right now, Odell Beckham, bust or trust 2020?
I think he's going to be a 1. I would trust him as a 1, but not a top receiver.
I'm going to say bust. Again, 4th year in a row. He's going to bust. And again, based on expectation, right? Because everybody thinks he's going to be this.
He'll put stats up.
What's that? He'll put stats up, but it won't be a phenomenal year he had with Eli 3-4 years ago.
No.
So, not going to happen.
One more question. Bengals.
Sure.
Running back situation.
This is a good one. Man, Mixon, do we trust him? He's threatening to hold out as well. What's going on with him? The contract. What's happening? Is he going to get paid? Does he get paid? That's the question.
I don't think they're going to pay him.
Then I'm just not excited. I'm just not excited about the situation. I'm just going to stay away from Bengals altogether. Maybe next year I'll look at Burrow and Higgins. Maybe there's a connection.
You wouldn't take Burrow now as a backup? Too many unknowns.
I don't trust it yet. I don't trust it. I mean, there is.
Is Burrow getting drafted though? Is he getting drafted?
No, he's kind of going undrafted or super late. I don't trust him because then you got the uncertainty of what's going to happen. Is he good?
Even if they're not winning, fantasy has nothing to do with winning football games. What if he's not winning, but he's throwing the ball a ton?
That could help.
We
saw it with Winston last year. Just
Kyler Murray. What's the difference with him and Kyler Murray though?
Kyler Murray
when he was a rookie, I'm saying.
Nothing. Kyler just looked more dynamic. I don't know, just more. I like the running quarterback a little bit more. It just looked more exciting. I don't know what it was. And I think the better weapons, I think it just seemed like a better situation because there's the air raid.
I understand.
And you saw you had David Johnson. They just looked more like air raid-ish, more exciting. Whereas Cincinnati is just a terrible offense. I don't know how they're going to do. Is AJ Green going to be durable? Is he going to be safe? Is the O-line going to be good enough to protect them? I don't know. Too many question marks.
Well, that's good for now. We can dive into it more.
All right, Tom. Buster Trust, man. What a show. And I like having that open discussion, just having some fun here, having that open football talk or just off the cuff. I don't like the plan stuff sometimes,
Yeah, that's what it's going to be moving forward.
All right, Tom. So, yeah, guys, make sure you guys get the 16-round draft solution. Link here is below. Get it at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Tom, always a pleasure here, man. We're going to keep doing our Wednesday show. And some good show ideas as well. The positional battles. We should do an episode for that. Maybe next week.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. We are out. Subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and leave your questions below. Love to hear your feedback on everything we talked about. Let me know some of the Buster Trust guys from some of the guys we talked about. Thanks, guys. We are out. Subscribe. We'll talk soon.